All right. What is up, everyone? It is, Saturday, May 7th of 2022. I'm back for another family education and support group. Sorry we missed you last week. My intention was to be able to air some of our celebration of recovery that we had at Buckeye Recovery Network for you live, but there was technical difficulties. And in 2022, I think if we haven't found a way to make peace with technical difficulties, then we're really a little bit, and we need to catch up. So all that being said, let me start off with a quick introduction while some people start to trickle in. My name is Param. I am the facilitator of this group on a weekly basis, and a little bit about my background and my history in case anybody's new watching this or is going to watch this for the first time. I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy with an emphasis in child development, which I think today is going to be pretty valuable because we're going to talk a little bit about parenting and the development of a human being. And I'm also a licensed advanced alcohol and drug counselor. So my subspecialty, if you will, is related to addictions, whether it's processes, behavior, substances. And I am also in recovery myself. So full self-disclosure, June 13th of 2008 is my sobriety date. It's kind of the day that I changed my life around and the trajectory of my life and my family's life from that moment on. So it's coming up on 14 years here next month, but we don't have any, we don't give freebies. There's no handouts until I get there. And I also coach high school basketball. So that's something I like to bring up because when we dive into recovery, it doesn't mean our whole life has to be all about one thing. We can become balanced individuals who can contribute to different parts of society. And I've been doing that for 14 years. So good morning, Jose. Good morning, Mom. Faye is here in the house. It's good to have my mom here because today's theme is actually going to be really related to an upcoming calendar event and date that we have coming up here, which is Mother's Day. Okay. And why is it important to talk about a Mother's Day, especially in the recovery process? Well, for multiple different reasons. Because Debbie, what's up? Because people like Debbie and my mom that are here, one of the main reasons that they are here is because of their own life experience of having a loved one of theirs through the recovery process. Because they're concerned, they're going through something in life. They need the education, they need all that kind of stuff. And as a mom, it's kind of like, I need to know what I can do. I have to learn what I can do. I need to figure out how I can support. So there's a component there. But I think the more important reason is because people like my mom and Debbie, besides the fact that they're moms themselves, has to do with the fact that they have or had moms, right? So I think on this day, the reason this becomes important is because Mother's Day is one of those days that triggers emotions in humans, okay? And whether those emotions are good or bad, none of that kind of stuff matters. It triggers emotions. It brings up thoughts. It brings up memories. It brings up reflections. It can stir up stuff that we have deep inside of us for many, many years. Good morning, John. So when I'm talking about Mother's Day, I'm going to break this down to the most simplified version. For all of us watching this, so put your loved one aside right now. I know that's hard for some of the codependent moms to do. Put your loved one aside right now. All right. All of us watching this, myself included, and everyone watching this, we fall into one of two categories. One, it's either that your mom is still alive. And yeah, hold on, I want to shout this one out because this is very special to me. And Debbie, I am lucky to share these discussions with my mom here every week too. So special as we continue to grow Eileen. So you always see Eileen popping up here and sharing some of her experience with us. They're related, it's the mom. So that's really cool that this platform allows a mother and their daughter, which is also a mother, to be able to be here talking about recovery. And it's just such a beautiful, I take a lot of pride in that. And like I say, my mom's always here too. So it's just a wonderful thing. And yeah, there she is. Right on cue. You guys like perfect. I'm so lucky and blessed too. So I'm lucky also as well to have multi-generational families here. I mean, that's just really cool. So all of us, so Eileen included, Debbie included, myself included, Moni, Jose, my mom, everyone watching this right now, and everyone else that's on this, watching this at different times, we all fall in one or two categories. So one, either your mom is still alive, okay? And if your mom is still alive, your mom, it's like a loving, a nurturing, a supportive version of that experience, Or your mom could be alive and it could be the flip version of it. It could be someone that's been absent in your life, someone that was cold in your life, someone that's been critical in your life, right? So your mom is either alive and it's either a positive or kind of like a negative connotation. Or sometimes, by the way, I want to learn this word in here. We always say someone is something or something, right? Life isn't always like black or white. Sometimes life can be black and white. So someone can be nurturing and supportive, but also be critical at times. So I want to kind of break that connotation that we have where people are all or nothing. People are either this or that. People are complex. So either your mom is still alive and you're watching this, or number two, your mom's passed on. Like my mom, which I lost my grandma a year ago, November. So not this November, the November before, my grandma passed away, and that's my mom's mom. So, and she was loving, nurturing, and supportive. So either your mom is still alive, or they've passed on, and they were loving, nurturing, and supportive, or they were absent, cold, and critical. Outside of those two categories, there really is no other category there. So, and by the way, I want to clarify this because I know Tony's not on right now, but like Tony has taught me something. Counselor Tony at Buckeyes taught me something. I'm going to self-disclose a little bit of him because he's okay with it. Tony is one of those single dads. And when I say single dads, I mean like he does it all. He literally does it all. And I've been working with him, the privilege of working with him for 6 years. So I've seen what doing it all means with his daughter, like how he literally raises this person as the maternal figure besides the father figure, but also a maternal figure. So moms doesn't always show up as a biological mother, right? I want anyone else that's hearing this that might not have that label of biological mother, but wholeheartedly in your deepest core that you are the mother, like you're the mother because you've raised a human being. So it doesn't always show up as a biological mother. Mother can show up in many different ways and many different relationship dynamics. Some of our program participants, they identify, Tony, I don't know if you caught what I said right now, bro, but I gave you a really big compliment and a shout out because I'm talking about moms on Mother's Day. And I talked about your unique situation that you take on that maternal, that mother role also. And I think that, yeah, that's you. Yep, that's you. And I think Sarah said something too. That shout out would have meant a lot to Tony to hear. Well, he heard it. And Tony, I just want to say that you teach us a lot about, the role of the mother doesn't always have to come as the mom role or the biological mother role. So talking about Mother's Day, man, it's a day for you to celebrate too, to be honest. And also some of our program participants, they identify as their grandma as being their mom, or they identify as their adopted parents as being their parents' mother. Their step parents as being their mother, right? So it breaks down in different things. But I'll tell you, so whether your mom was the loving, nurturing, or supportive kind, or your mom was the absent, cold, and critical kind, or a little combination of both, there's a quote here that I think is pretty powerful that says, some people come into our lives, including our mothers, and they're there for a blessing. Like they give us a blessing of like, how grateful and blessed was I to have that person? Or they come into our lives and teach us a lesson. They teach us a lesson of how not to be, of what not to do, of ways to not engage with others. And even if that was what the experience that you had, it still teaches you something. And you might be saying, well, shit, I never wanted that lesson to begin with. Well, you got it, right? That's one thing about me. I'm very blunt and I'm very direct when it comes to the realities of life. And sometimes people can come and talk about their past and talk about their upbringings and just talk about how they didn't get a fair hand dealt to them. And they're sitting there with these cards and they're like, I don't want these cards. My job as somebody that's direct, sincere, authentic with this stuff is to say, hey, this is the cards you got. What you going to do with it? You could sit here and say, I wish I had a full house. I don't know why I'm using all these like card analogies. I don't even know how to play cards, but you could wish you had a different hand, but the reality is sometimes we don't. And what are you going to do with it? So, yeah, this is let's see what you got here, Tony. And Cataline, what's up? I'm going to get back in there again and say something about yours too. But Tony said people need to understand that kids are always watching, even when they aren't near you. That is very true. And I'll reiterate something there, Tony, that people rarely do what you tell them to do, but they always do what they see you do. So we model. It's kind of like the parent that's smoking cigarettes And as soon as the kids smoke cigarettes, they say, why the hell are you smoking cigarettes? Those are so bad for you. Well, they watched you do it, right? But when you model who and what you want them to be, then they all of a sudden have space and room to become that. And let's see what Kathleen said here. So this is good. This is the kind of conversations I wanted to come up. My mom, always in the gray area, not black or white. She passed away, though. I wish she would have known me now. And, I wish she would have known you now, because the recollection I have of you, Kathleen, in a short period of time is a wonderful, resilient human being that's highly, extraordinarily intelligent, way beyond my level of understanding. But you're also compassionate and kind, and you just don't give up. And I don't know if your mom saw that or didn't see that, or I don't know. I know you, like myself, have had your wife, torn into different parts of the world and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that thing happened there. And I don't know how much you believe in the whole spiritual realm and that kind of stuff, but I do believe that when we live a life of authenticity and we treat people with dignity and respect, and we show up the way that we would like other people to see us showing up as, that the universe has a way that we feel that same fulfillment of your mom getting to know you now. She might not get to know you firsthand, but she's getting to see the best parts of you. And I really do believe in that. And you got to kind of get to that state. And let's see what Eileen said here. Again, not black and white. Sometimes the mother we had in our younger years over the years grows and becomes a different mother later on in life. Thank you, because that is so much truth to that, right? I know this for a fact. I mean, my dad's probably watching this too. The same way that I have changed, the same way that I have transformed, the same way that I have invented and reinvented different versions of myself, I need to pass on that dignity and grace that other people can do the same thing too. I mean, there's always this joke, right? They always talk about grandparents, like when a child has a kid and then the grandparent shows up and it's like super sweet and loving and all they want to do is give the kid ice cream. The kid always says, where the hell was this person when I was growing up, right? Where was this version of you when I was growing up? But here's the thing. There's something called human development across the lifespan. So we start developing from the time mom gets pregnant and we're inside the body of the mom. That's when our human development starts. And our lifespan development, it never stops until the end. So who we are from 0 to 18 doesn't dictate who we are for the rest of our life. We continue to evolve. We continue to change. And the same way you look back at your own life and you say, gosh, I've changed so much over the years. Don't you think that other people can do the same thing too? Like my version of my dad now, cool, calm, collected, funny, relaxed, completely different than when I was a child, because he was under a lot of stress and duress and they were going through a hard time. And that's not the same person now. So wonderful to point that out. And so remember, some people come in our life for a lesson. And I know most mothers watching this right now, and it could be fathers too, but most parents watching this right now, you're here because of the addiction of your loved one, right? That's like the only reason why you would be on this channel at first. Maybe later on, I was able to inspire you and teach you that you're here for yourself. But in the beginning, that's really not the case. You're just like, okay, let me get a pen and paper and write down what this person says so I can figure out how I'm going to change the addiction of my kid. How am I going to help them? How am I going to make them sober? That's pretty much the entry level. And I understand that. And I'm totally okay with that. But there are these 3 things called the 3 C's of addiction. And they teach it in Al-Anon and they teach it in the program. Number 1 is, all parents, I want you to know that you didn't cause it. You did not cause the development, like the progression of the addiction of your disease, of the addiction of your loved one. You didn't cause it. If you can understand that you didn't cause it, I want you to understand that you can't control it, because the more you try to control something, what happens? The more it starts to go out of control. The more you control something, the more it goes out of control. And the last one is, you can't cure it. I mean, gosh, if every single parent was able to cure the addiction of their loved one, then we wouldn't have the mess that we're in right now. And when I say you didn't cause it, I want you to know this, and this part kind of doesn't feel too good to hear it sometimes. There is a part that our environment plays in the development of dysregulated emotions. So this is what I mean by that. If you're raising a kid, whether you're completely by yourself and you're highly stressed and overwhelmed, or you're raising a kid in an environment that's volatile and loud and abusive and all that kind of stuff, or you're just working 50, 60 hours a week to make ends meet, all that kind of stuff. And your kid's always left home alone, neglected, feeling abandoned. You had to do what you had to do in that life situation. And I'm not going to hold anyone against that, because guess what? As human beings, including myself, we are not perfect and we are flawed, right? There is a chance that as a result of dysfunction, as a result of an unhealthy lifestyle, as a result of imbalance in your life, that your kid felt certain things. They had certain feelings, right? Their emotions got dysregulated. And if you weren't there, or the environment wasn't there to calm them down, to love them, to support them, to care them, to quiet their mind, they started to feel a little reckless. And in the beginning, it's like video games. They'll play a bunch of video games, or they'll go play a lot of sports and all that kind of stuff, which is decent ways, because it gets them out of their head. But when that stuff stops working and socialization happens and stuff, and then they use a substance, let's say your house was always loud and chaotic and there was a lot of just yelling and screaming going on, and that kid drinks some alcohol, takes his Xanax, smokes some weed, and all of a sudden their anxiety goes down, they're like, see, you didn't cause it. The environment created that in which they coped with. So you do have a part in it. And we all have a part in everything. But I don't want you to think that you were the direct cause, like, oh my God, if I would have done this differently, my kid wouldn't have had addiction. That's not the case, because we can't predict how people feel in life and what they're going to do to cope with those feelings. Especially when they're younger, they got no coping skills. The reason why kids pick up substances so young is because they don't have coping skills and they try something and it works. Let's get real. Substances work in the initial stages. If a kid's got a lot of anxiety, a 0.5 milligram of Xanax is going to take that anxiety down. It really will. That's why they prescribe those kind of things. But if the anxiety doesn't go away, if the situation, the environment doesn't change, the chaoticness is still there, and all of a sudden that 0.5 milligram turns into 1 to 2 to 6 to 8. I mean, I've seen kids come into our treatment center with as high as 24 milligrams of Xanax a day, right? Nobody needs 24 milligrams of Xanax a day. It doesn't do anything. It just puts you in a really bad state and potentially could lead you to a seizure and death. But that's the progression that we're talking about here. So whenever I'm talking about this, please know that it's never to put fault or blame. I think you know me, for those of you who've been coming here a while, on the parent. That's just not what I do and not how I think. But I want to go through this whole thing. And so again, even if you had a disadvantaged upbringing, so even if you had an upbringing that was disadvantaged, oh, this is cool. Stacy, what's up? Sorry, just got to give you a shout out. I've had you and your wonderful sons on this show before. So thank you. I'm glad you're loving this. Thank you. And happy Mother's Day to you as well. Thank you for still participating in these family educations years later. Your son could probably teach this thing right now. So what I got here to say is, remember, even if you came from a disadvantaged upbringing, even if your mom, dad, whatever it was, wasn't there, it was horrible, was whatever you want to call it, right? And I understand that happens in human behavior. None of that upbringing was really your fault, right? It's never a kid's fault for coming up in chaos. But as an adult, because everyone's watching this right now, I want you to know that right now, it is your responsibility to figure it out. And I've had people point blank tell me that is the most messed up thing you can tell me. I've had adults tell me this, right? An adult has told me that is so messed up of you. That's so, it lacks so much empathy. So, it's so harsh for you to tell me that I grew up in this life situation and now it's my responsibility to do something about it. If not you, who? Right? If you're not going to do something about the disadvantaged upbringing you had right now as an adult, then who is? Because if you wait your whole life for something in the past to come and all of a sudden heal you away and say, okay, now life is going to be okay, you'll be waiting miserable and resentful and angry for the rest of your life. And by the way, that's going to lead to a lot of physical health problems. People get really ill when they hold on to that stuff. So if we take responsibility for our upbringings and whatever chaos was there by choice or not, then we have the opportunity to break cycles. And oftentimes these are multi-generational cycles. And if we don't, we will continue to be hurt in life. And like I always say, hurt people will hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. So here's my checklist that I've created. You know, I like checklists because I'm a type A personality kind of person. I like little bullet points and all that kind of stuff. But here's what I have. These are signs that you as an adult need to be remothered or we can call it reparented. Okay. So on some level, we all got mothered on some level. Hopefully for most of us, it was good, but unfortunately for some of us, it isn't. I could tell you, full disclosure, my mom's watching this. She did a wonderful job with me. And despite of that, when I was struggling with my alcoholism, when I was struggling with my addiction, I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you, and I would literally say that my mom was my closest ally in my life. Really, 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 really loving, caring, supportive. In the depths of my addiction, from the ages of like 20 to 23, I, the same person talking to you right now, stole from my mother. I would take from her. My mom would go to work all day. When she would come home, I would take from her. Right? So the love that we have for others, or the way they raised us, doesn't necessarily mean like, I'm going to screw her over. I'm going to go hurt her on purpose. Those are actually the most painful things in my life that I've ever done. And I'm not talking about them casually like this. My mom knows to this day, 14 years later, I still feel like shit about those things. I used to write letters to my mom after I screwed her over about how I'm going to change. And they were so sincere, and how I'm going to pay her back and what I'm going to do to make it right and all that kind of stuff. And a week later, I do it again. And that's the power of addiction we're talking about here. It overconsumes like understanding of how much I care for that person. And my mom in my corner was the reason I got sober too. And thank God for moms like my mom, or like I said, like the Tonys of the world that don't have to be moms, because Tony's the same way as my mom was. They don't give up. They just don't. So my mom never gave up on me when I gave up on myself. And that's a gift. That's a really powerful thing. So here are the signs you need to be remothered or reparented. Okay, so let's just put that there, and I want to kind of open that up so it's not kind of polarizing to one side. So if you have unrealistic expectations in relationships, okay, and we're all in relationships. So whether you're in a romantic or platonic relationship, or you're in a work relationship, right, professional relationship, if you constantly, continuously have unrealistic expectations, so you think that this needs to happen, but this keeps happening. You have to look and see that gap that exists. Is that realistic or is it unrealistic? For example, some people have this, put their mom or their dad on a pedestal, and whoever they go try to meet has to meet that bar. And is that fair to the person they're meeting that they keep falling short of that? Or vice versa. Some people have a bar so low about their parents that they'll just put up with anything and everybody. I mean, they'll just put up with the worst things possible. Because they're unrealistic expectations that they have. And let's see what we got here. Tony said something here. I think it might be relevant to what I was saying. I can relate to those letters and realize now that those letters were ways to manipulate my way back into taking her peace again. Yeah, man. I would see, the one thing about manipulation, we become master manipulators, right, Tony? We talk about this, we teach this. But at the time when it was happening, at least this is my truth. At the time it was happening, I did feel that it was sincere, and I did feel like it was genuine. I did feel like I genuinely was trying to be good. But when it happens one time, two time, three time, I mean, my mom has like a stack of letters I wrote to her. At some point, it becomes manipulation, and that's the line that gets crossed from like sincere, like feeling bad about behavior, to just saying, hey, I'm going to do it again and do it again. So there is like this devious line, I think, that gets crossed over that takes it into manipulation. But in real time, it didn't feel like it, at least for me, but there's other people that I had no problem with the manipulation component of it. So thank you. And thank you for all these comments, by the way. This is wonderful. So the next one is signs that you need to be remothered or reparented. This one's important. It says emotionally caretaking for others to the point of your own exhaustion and resentment. Now, every mom like watching this right now is like, oh God, or every caretaker. I know there's a Kathleen's doing some caretaking. There's if it gets to the point that you are fully exhausted and you feel resentful about doing it, it has to do something with the upbringing process. Because I always say this, codependence don't happen just in addiction. Okay. I've had family members, moms, dads tell me, I wasn't codependent in my life until my loved one started to get addicted. And now I feel like everything's out of control. So I'm fully codependent. I call BS. A true codependent has been codependent their whole life, because at some point in their life, they came up in a system that they had to be responsible for others. Now, you could just be the older child taking care of your siblings. You could be a parentified role because you have one parent that's like not taking care of themselves and you're taking care of the other parent. But it started way, way, way back then. And now your child is just the newest episode. It's just the newest flavor of your codependency. So if you always fall in the caretaking role, it's a sign that you need to be reparented and remothered. The next one is unconscious self-sabotage in work and in love. If you build things up and then blow them up and you don't have any idea what's going on, or you just don't get it. Like if you have a pattern that keeps happening, unconscious pattern, because you're just like wondering, why does this keep happening to me? It is a sign that you need to be remothered and reparented, because there's some things in healthy upbringing that need to happen to us in terms of feeling valuable and feeling high self-esteem and feeling love and being lovable. When you feel all those things, you don't blow everything up. When you don't feel those things, when you don't have those things, we become susceptible to blowing things up because we feel like we don't deserve them. You know how many people blow up good relationships and good jobs because when they get there, because they weren't parented and brought up right, they feel like they don't deserve it. They feel like a phony. They feel like it's not real, and they just blow it up, blow it up, blow it up. The next one is the inability to ask for and receive support. So it's a sign that you probably need to be reparented if you can't ask for support. And by the way, when I say you need to be reparented, you're like, I'm a grown person. I'm already a parent. What do you mean? Like I said, lifespan development across the human lifespan. It keeps going and going and going. So if you're like 50, 55, 60, 65, 70 years old watching this, and you're resonating with all these things that I'm saying about needing to be reparented, that means you got to start finding ways to nurture yourself and parent yourself and love yourself at this stage in your life to be able to heal some of these wounds that oftentimes unintentionally were left by those who raised us. And I always say unintentionally because there are some people that hurt us on purpose. Like there's some people that deliberately hurt us on purpose, but there's some people out there that hurt us and they don't even know they're hurting us. And how could you hold someone against that? Right? Because all you got to do is think of it this way. Have you ever hurt someone and you didn't really mean to hurt them? The answer is yes. So if you can do that, don't you think other people can do that as well? You know, but we always take something so personally when it happens to us. One of them, this one, I think this is big, and it says disordered eating. So binge eating, bulimia, restriction, or substance abuse, numbing coping skills, you know, the self-harm, the cutting, all that kind of stuff, are signs that you need to be reparented, right? Reparented. And again, when I say signs, you're like, I had a parent. That's okay. You had a parent, but these are still left in you despite of having a parent. So you need to be reparented, right? And it's not a knock or shame on the parenting job they did. You know, I have some of these things, by the way, you know, and I consider having decent parents, and despite of having decent parents, I still have a lot of these things in my checklist going on, right? Because people don't raise people perfectly. It's impossible. Allowing and accepting poor or abusive treatment from others. So that's a sign that you definitely need to be reparented. And how does that happen, by the way? So if you come up in an abusive relationship or an environment and that's all you know, like if yelling and screaming was the norm in the house or violence was the norm in your house, and now you're in a relationship and you're putting up with yelling and screaming and violence, and you keep putting up with that, people don't know sometimes that that's not the norm. And I know that sounds crazy for some people to think, like, how do you not know that's not normal? You might know it, but you won't do anything about it because as a child, you know that's not normal, but no one's doing anything about it, right? And it's kind of the fish that's swimming in water, does it really know it's in water analogy. And the next one that I have here is shame. So believing that something is fundamentally wrong with you and that you're not worthy of love. So this goes back to the self-sabotage thing. It's oftentimes a product of human beings coming up in an environment and not getting the love they need. For example, I always say, you see this plant behind me, this orchid. This orchid needs sunlight. This orchid needs soil, dirt. This orchid needs oxygen. This orchid needs a couple ice cubes, like once a week for watering it. If the right environment with the right nutrients and the right light and the right, this ecosystem is stored, it can actually live in a healthy way. Now, if it didn't have the light, if it didn't have the soil, if it didn't have the the water, all that kind of stuff, the orchid will die. Human beings are the same way. If we don't receive what I like to call like the love, the support, the connection, all those elements that allow us to feel our best version of ourselves, the healthiest version of ourselves, we don't do that well. And believing that something is fundamentally wrong with you and you're not worthy of love is a byproduct of that environment not being appropriate for the healthy development of a human being. So what's the key to that one? Well, do the work to start loving yourself and surround yourself with people that love you. And this sometimes doesn't have to be family members, by the way. So we have a family of birth, and then we got a family of choice, right? Sometimes our family of choice, the people we surround ourselves with, have nothing to do with the people that we have the same last names as us, and that's okay. Who says that has to be the rule? Right? Find people that give you that love. And the next one is feeling relentlessly needy in your relationship. So I was doing this group with our program participants this morning, and oftentimes these they get into relationships, in early recovery, which we don't want them to. And one thing that they always bring up is they say, yeah, they're in relationships, like, and all of a sudden they keep asking the other person, do you love me? 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 That constant need of like receiving love is demonstrated. It's created. It's like fostered in an environment that where you were never parented properly. Because the person that's received love doesn't go on this pursuit of like trying to find love anywhere and everywhere, like this seek of attention. So those are some of the signs of it. So now what are the keys to remothering yourself? So if you identified with some of those, you're like, okay, there are significantly some signs there that I need to be remothered. So what are the ways that you can remother yourself or reparent yourself? Well, number one, on top of the list, the very highest thing on the list is you have to have patience on top of that list. Okay? Because the same way that an actual mother has an infant or a child, they have to be patient for that kid to be able to hold itself up. They have to be patient for that kid to be able to crawl. They have to be patient for that kid to be able to sit, for a long period of time. They have to be patient for that kid to be able to stand and walk. Patient for that kid to be able to speak and to eat and to start becoming a little person. When you're trying to do that to yourself, you have to be patient with yourself to break these patterns that you've had for years and years and years and years and years and years. And every time you fall short on that, do you go into the unhealthy version of getting pissed at yourself, getting mad at yourself, thinking you're stupid or you can't do it? Or would you be like a healthy mother that says, it's okay, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. You have to learn that discipline is a good thing, because human beings growing up, we have a very, very negative connotation with discipline, because discipline always comes after you did something wrong. Always in traditional versions. That's the wrong connotation for the word discipline. Discipline actually means self-love. When you love yourself enough, you will be disciplined. Because my definition of discipline we always work with is this: doing something you know you need to do even when you don't want to do it. Doing something you know you need to do even when you don't want to do it. That is discipline. But in the other version of it, when someone doesn't do something they're supposed to do, they get disciplined, which is completely wrong. And oh, hell yeah, this is perfect, Dan. Dan, which is someone else that's been on this for a long period of time with the rest of the fam. Self-care, taking care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit was a game changer for me. By the way, that is reparenting self. This is someone that's like lived a life, a solid life, family, children, all that kind of stuff, work, done it all. And all of a sudden got into the recovery process and said, shit, I got to wake up, man. I got to start investing in myself. I got to start taking care of myself. I got to start taking care of my mind, my body, my spirit. If I don't do this, I'm going to drown. And this is not someone that did this like when they were young. It's like later on in life decided that this is important. This is huge, by the way. Thank you for disclosing that. See what Mr. Counselor Julian says. You got to change your name to Counselor Julian. You can't seek validation from others to tell you you're loved, especially in early recovery when you don't even know who you are yet. Thank you, Julian. When people say like, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? They keep asking that because they don't know who the heck they are, right? But when you get to know yourself and you have a clear understanding of who and what you are and realize that you are lovable exactly the way you are and exactly the way you're not, then it really helps that. let's see what, yeah, so there you go, Cataline. I like how you said the last part. It's unrealistic. So you go back to one of the signs that you need to be remothered or reparented. You just actually answered it in your own thing. So you want other people to have the same discipline. So you are someone that's disciplined. You do things that you know you need to do, even when you don't want to do them. So you hold yourself to this high level of discipline. And other people, because most people are not disciplined, not just the people in your life, most people in life are not disciplined, are not able to do that. And there's this gap that gets created from you to them. And that gap causes you to get frustrated, and you're starting to realize that it's unrealistic. So in this gap, the one thing that I would suggest that you fill in that gap is this thing called compassion. It's called the compassion gap. And you fill it with that. And you got to always realize this, that sometimes, I'm not saying always, that others people, when they get to this point right here, that might be the best they can do that day. And I know that's hard to understand because you're like, wait, what do you mean? Like if they just try a little bit harder, they'll come up more. What if that's their best? And if you don't have compassion in that moment for them, you're kind of not allowing other people to at least give their best, right? Because your best and their best is always going to be different. So, and it's unrealistic. It's going to cause a lot of resentment, unmet expectations. Support and modeling is another way to remodel yourself. If you've never had a good parent or role model, go find someone that is and just model them. We tell that to kids all the time. Find a mentor, find a model. We tell people find a sponsor. You can do that later on in life. Why not? We're just children in different stages of our lives at all times. And the next one is compassion, like I just talked about. It's on there. An unconditional positive regard to yourself. Compassion is always the key when you're trying to do anything new. And if compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete, right? And the last one I got there is ultimately you break the cycle. You're able to finally break the cycle of oftentimes multi-generational patterns. So, for example, there's always this thing that kids want their parents to talk to them a certain way or like communicate with them a certain way, but they don't, right? It's been around for every single generation has it. So what happens here, I'll just break it down for you. I know you understand this, but let's just say if I always wanted someone like my dad to talk to me a certain way and he never did, and then I get frustrated and upset because my dad doesn't talk to me a certain way. If I don't learn how to communicate, one day someone else will be complaining that they wish I would talk to them a certain way and I don't. So we pass on these multi-generational patterns because if people don't have something, they don't know how to give it. So we're expecting them to give us something they don't even have, which is impossible. And then we're left resentful that we never got it. And if we never got it, guess what? We can't give it. So now the next generation is going to be pissed off, frustrated. Their needs are not going to be met because they're unable to get what it is that they want. So the only way to break the cycle is to reparent ourselves, right? To find out what you didn't get and then give it to yourself. And you might need some help doing that. You might need like a therapist or something like that, but it's okay. That's the whole point of this stuff. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging, hey, there's some elements of my upbringing that I want to work on because I want to break the cycle. It's actually honorable. So the last thing I have about 5 quotes here that I thought would kind of wrap this session up in a positive way. So I went, I have this, I'm not like a Catholic or anything like that. And I don't know much about Catholicism. I don't know much about that whole realm or world of, religion, to be honest. But I do know a little bit about Mother Teresa. And one thing that stands out for me is that, in 1979, she got a Nobel Peace Prize. So whenever someone's getting a peace prize from like a religious denomination, that means they're doing something that transcends their religion. They're doing something on a much, 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 much greater scale. And when you look at and later on, I guess she was anointed a saint, which, that takes it to another level. I don't know much about that either. But let's just say that this is a generally considered a good person. I don't know her. I don't think any of you know her too personally. But, the work to do with poverty, the type of poverty we're talking about, with people in famish, with hunger, with people with leprosy. I mean, it's just like it's another level of compassion and love. So, it's Mother's Day. Mother Teresa could be a good way to kind of summarize a few quotes here. But I found a few here that I thought really resonated, and I want to share them with you. So the first one says, and this is really profound in my opinion, there is more hunger for love and appreciation in this world than there is for bread. Okay. And I've shared this with you, and people that know me, they see me around when I do this. Is anytime I come across homeless people or people that are really struggling and they're asking for something, I always stop and I always help. Just I want to say that, and I'm not saying that to say, oh, look at me, I'm helping, because I help because I just want to put that message out there that it's okay to help people. They're not they might go buy some substances with the money that I got them, but there's a deeper message beyond that happens to them. It says somebody actually gave a shit to stop. Okay. And what I do actually is I always ask them their name. I always talk to them. I always strike a conversation with them, ask them how they're doing and what they're up to and how long they've been doing this and how long they've been down and out and did they have a previous life and all that kind of stuff and what was that like? Because remember, people have a deeper hunger for love and appreciation and acknowledgement. If you ever ask a homeless person what their name is, you'll be surprised how many of them will say that's the first time someone's asked them that in a long time, right? The first time someone's asked them their name, they care to even know their name in a long, long time. So we can do something about that. Even if you have a boundary that you don't want to give money to people for whatever reason, you can always give them a little bit of love and appreciation, right? Maybe that's what they need to get them through that day. The next one that says, never worry about numbers, help one person at a time, and always start with the person nearest you, and that could include yourself. But if you say, well, look, man, there's all this like homelessness going on. We're in this epidemic, pandemic of homelessness all over the country. These liberal West lefty, they don't care about, the streets and this and that. If you want to get in that narrative, feel free to, but just know by doing that you're not helping anything at all. Unless you go and just, hey, you see a homeless person, you go talk to them. You're not resolving the homeless crisis by doing that, but you're resolving that person's moment of like feeling disconnected. The next one, this was cool. It says, I used to believe that prayer changes things, but now I know that prayer changes us and we change things. So whether you are religious or not religious or anything like that, we all understand what prayer means. To our chorus thing, what we do is we want to pray for something to change, and we're just like, pray, this and that. But when we actually pray to something that's not us and like a deeper level of understanding, it changes us. It changes your perspective. And with a changed perspective, then I can go out and make changes. So that was profound, I think, that she said. The problem with I love this one. So ready? The problem with the world is that we draw the circle of our family too small. Wow, that's really cool. The problem with the world, so not just what we're doing here, the whole entire world, is that we draw the circle of our family too small, right? So we think that family is, okay, we draw a circle of like, the 30 or 40 people that have the same last name with us, or they happen to be sisters or brothers with our moms and dads and their kids. So we have this circle and that's our family and that's all we're supposed to care about. But that is the smallest version you can do. I mean, why not just grab your little thing and draw a big circle in your community, right? Draw a big circle of people that you can consider treating them like you would treat family. And I know this stuff sounds like I'm already struggling with the ones I got. I don't need any more than that. But that's thinking that our love and our connection with other people is finite, and it's not. The more we connect to others, the more we receive back and just connection. I have two more. One says not handouts, but rather handhelds. So people always say, there's certain philosophy of individuals. We don't need to give people handouts. We don't need to give people handouts. They can go figure it out on their own. That whole kind of stuff that pisses me off, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a handout, man. I think it's a handheld. I think you're actually holding a human being's hand through a very difficult process, because guess what? Maybe that person never got their hand held, right? Maybe that person never got their hand held. I mean, one of the things I'm really passionate about is like the marginalized communities. And let's just talk about the places that, they call them like the ghettos. And people say, well, if you want to work your way out of there, you can work your way out of there if you want. That is such an ignorant thing to say, because when you actually go and look at the life experience of human beings are having there are limited to no resources to get out. And someone says, that's bullshit. If they want to, they can. No, you can't. It is so difficult when there are no jobs, when there is no pathway to education, when there are all broken homes, that all the parents are either locked up or in prison or working single homes, just working 80 hours, that there are no or limited options out. So to say that they want handouts is bullshit. They just want their hand held. The same way that a lot of us have our hands held to come out. I mean, a lot of our program participants, I said this in this morning, you wouldn't be here in this thing listening to Param if it wasn't for a family member that didn't give up on you, a family member that had the resources to put you here, a family member that is literally sacrificing what they have for you right now. Now, what if you didn't have all that? You know where you'd end up? Jail, streets, 6 feet under, you know? And this is the very last one that I have, and I'll let you go with this, is it says, if you can't feed 100 people, then just feed one. You know, if you can't feed 100 people, just feed one. And again, that goes back to my philosophy is like, hey, yeah, you can't do anything about the homeless epidemic that's happening. You know, we got 60,000 homeless people in Los Angeles. I can't feed that, but there might be one person in Los Angeles that I could feed, you know. And, you know, if you're struggling with Mother's Day tomorrow, if you've lost your mother, you can't be out, you know, that kind of stuff like that. Maybe just go be a mother to someone, you know, just maybe go be a mother to someone and go see if you could help somebody else out. Because why not? You know, Mother's Day is just one day of the year that the calendar designates for it, but we could do that every day. And so this is a very powerful one. Since my mom's here, just want to acknowledge her too and say happy Mother's Day. Thank you for, like I said, not giving up on me through the whole process of addiction and recovery and being a champion in my life. So thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow for Mother's Day. And let's just see what people are saying here real quick. Thank you, Kathleen, for being here. Because if you weren't here, then I'd be some random guy talking to his computer screen. Debbie said, wow, that was a powerful, feel like I may need to rewatch again. Good. I like that. And feel free to share this, by the way. I always invite you to share this with your circle. So if you have a little circle of family or like friends, share it to them. I mean, why not? Eileen, thank you, Param, and happy Mother's Day and Others Day to all. That's good. I like that. You know, I wish you would have said that earlier today, because I would have just titled this whole thing Happy Others Day. But next year, Eileen, I count on you guys to be here next Mother's Day. We'll do this called Others Day. Mom, I have so many authentic letters from you. Oh, after you've been sober, that I'm thankful. So see, that's one thing I can probably talk about this. I also continue to write letters after I got sober. So it wasn't just the ones that I was drunk and I stole a couple $100 from my mom's purse. And I'm more understanding and responsible for my shortcomings, and still I'm working on them, but no more guilt and shame, I think. And no more guilt and shame. That's not needed. There's no shame in recovery. Hossein John, you're welcome, and happy Mother's Day. I'll talk to you guys later. And love and appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Take care, everyone.